5 Live Formula One.
The sun has set, the lights have come on to illuminate this Marina Bay circuit, host of the Singapore Grand Prix. Welcome along to live coverage of qualifying, the original F1 night race, a driver's favourite but a hugely challenging one. Not only the tight nature of the circuit where the walls are closer than you think, but the immense temperature and humidity all play a factor here. And so far, we're struggling to get a full view of the true pecking order with very different conditions for all three practice sessions. The one consistent factor, however, is Lando Norris and McLaren are looking strong. Lucky for me then that joining myself, Harry Benjamin, in the commentary box is McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird. And Sam, based off of what we've seen so far, it certainly looks like Norris is the main man to beat for pole at the moment.
It does indeed, Harry. He had, the best part of 4 tenths over George Russell in second place in FP3. Is that repeatable in qualifying? Only time will tell.
Well, we will get Q1 underway shortly, where the slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated from the session. But of course, we'll have 20 drivers out on track. And we've seen in all the practice sessions so far, Sam, that traffic management can be a real issue here. How do they go about sorting themselves out for Q1?
Well, I can imagine that a lot of the I think maybe the Red Bulls might go early to try and get a lap time on the board. We might see McLaren and some of the others doing a similar sort of thing, but of course the track is going to ramp up. The last minute of Q1 is going to be the quickest. Everybody's going to be wanting to be out on track at the same time, and it concertinas up in the last sector. We've seen it year after year at this circuit. It's so difficult to police, and it's even more difficult when you're in the hot seat and when you are either the engineer or the driver. Very, very challenging.
Well, we are keeping cool in the commentary box, but I speak of hot and humid, and so naturally you think Rosanna Tennant, who's down in the pit lane for us across qualifying. Hello, Rosanna.
Hello, Harry. Yes, hot and humid. Those are the 2 words I think I've heard the most over the last couple of days here in Singapore. It is unbelievably humid, 79% humidity, and it's feeling about 30 degrees, although the temperature's actually about 28 or 29. And yes, it's the evening, and yes, it's a night race, but it just does not let up here in Singapore. And so this is going to be a challenge for the drivers. And you've been talking about traffic management. They're going to be managing how much they're drinking. There is so much extra to think about here in Singapore, I think, as well as, of course, those corners, the walls, they're so tight and twisty, and you make one little tiny mistake and you are punished here. It's going to be a really interesting hour to see who comes out on top.
It certainly will be, won't it? Another thing as well to mention, Sam, is track evolution. It's going to be so high around here. Almost every practice session we've had has been different conditions so far. So it is a bit like we're heading into a blank slate, and the track will ramp up lap after lap. So in Q1, will it almost be a case of last man over the line?
Well, that's what I meant earlier. The last minute will be the most critical in all the qualifying sessions that we're about to have in Q1, Q2 and Q3. You're going to want to be one of the last across the line. I think that the likes of Ferrari, McLaren have enough that if they weren't to do it on their final lap, they'd still get through to Q3. However, you are definitely going to want to be last across the line or one of at the end of Q3.
All the drivers sat in the cockpits of their car just waiting for the signal to head out into the pit lane to get this qualifying session started. The fans spraying in their faces with the cold ice and the liquid nitrogen, trying to keep them cool, and the car cool as well. One thing I love about these tracks is you can see when we're up close and personal almost the whites of the driver's eyes, because they've got to have different types of visors. There's also all sorts of different lighting settings on the dash as well. Can you take us a bit more into the cockpit, Sam, and just how it differentiates from a traditional daytime race?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you see on the drivers, just like what we saw with George Russell there, he is wearing what looks like, from a little bit further away, the normal everyday daylight visor. However, it's more see-through, so it lets in more light into through the visor and into your eyes. Actually, we see Esteban Ocon, I believe that is, with the normal daytime visor. He's gone for a normal daytime visor. Shows that the lighting in Singapore is so bright. Some other drivers, as we see Alexander Albon, as you can see there, Harry, can you see that you can see through the visor? That's the kind of, it just lets in enough light but no glare into the helmet. They will also, a lot of the drivers, turn down the light display on their dash, so they've got less kind of these bright lights right in their face.
Almost like you're sort of you're sleeping in a pitch dark room and suddenly someone turns off a light and you're almost blinded by it. You've got to turn it down that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it is a green light at the end of the pit lane, and Q1 is underway. 17 minutes and 35, 34, 33 seconds remain of this first qualifying session as they head out onto the track. The Ferrari of Leclerc, the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon, and Sainz in the other Ferrari now head out of the pits. Let's just bring you up to speed then with how things are looking in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship as we arrive at round 18. Can you believe it? 7 races left to go. 3 sprints and both championships still to be decided. Over in the Constructors, that's where we've got the closest fight right now, and having taken the lead in Baku last week, McLaren have a 20-point advantage over Red Bull. Then comes Ferrari, who are very much making it a 3-horse race, only 31 points behind McLaren. Then Mercedes and Aston Martin a little bit in no man's land in the middle of the field. We have a fascinating battle for the lower Constructors field. 6th place currently goes to RB, but they're only 5 ahead of Haas, who are only 13 points ahead of Williams, who jumped Alpine last time out in Baku, courtesy of Williams' double points finish. They are now just 3 points ahead of the French squad, and Sauber 0 points, still yet to get off the mark. Over in the driver standings, Max Verstappen leads by 59 points. Lando Norris chasing, needs a good weekend here and to take points out of that championship battle against Verstappen. Leclerc is 3rd, Piastri and Carlos Sainz round out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. Right, still waiting for the world champion, the reigning world champion, to come out of the pit lane. Let's check in with Rosanna.
Ones to watch for you, Harry. I'm keeping an eye on the Williams team for this particular qualifying. They were looking pretty strong in FP3, looking pretty good yesterday as well. Alex Albon was P8 in FP3 and his new teammate Franco Colapinto P9. But watch out for how they progress, because they've had an interesting tyre strategy during FP3. We saw that no one was improving on their second laps on the soft tyre, so it's a little bit strange that Franco Colapinto chose to run 2 softs when they do have a chance of making it into the top 10 this evening, I think. But he's now only got 4 sets of softs, and he's likely going to need them, and he's only got therefore 3 sets to get through Q1 and Q2, so he's going to need to do 1 session on 1 set. He's going to have to be careful he doesn't make any mistakes, and of course he's new to all of this. Pressure is on, but Williams, I think, wants to watch this evening.
So we see at some of the tracks that some of the top runners are able to go to a slightly harder compounder tyre to get through to Q1. That's not the case here. Such is the advantage that the soft tyre has. It's over a second to a second and a half quicker on the soft than it is the medium compound tyre. So we will see everybody out on soft compound tyres here this evening at Singapore for Q1.
Softest in the range Pirelli had brought this weekend. The C3 acting as the hard, the C4 medium, and as you say, Sam, the C5 soft, which will be the qualifying tyre to go on. Charles Leclerc embarking on his first flyer, making his way through turn 11, then the right-hander of 12 before you slightly dart to the left over the Anderson Bridge into the braking zone of turn 13. Late on the brakes through the left-hander, gets it nice and tidy, apply the throttle up through the gears into 6th gear, then to 7th before you stamp on the brakes and then throw it into the right-hander of turn 14 before you head along the new from last year 400-metre long straight. It's also the site of the new and additional 4th DRS zone, which was open for Leclerc and then slammed shut under braking through the right-hander of 16, the left-hander of 17. You run out wide, getting oh so close to the wall before 2 more corners remain. Almost flat out double left-handers that see off a lap here of the Marina Bay circuit. Charles Leclerc across the line, his first lap on the board, a 1:30.896.
Yeah, it's quite a long way off compared to where we were in FP3. They haven't run in a few hours, and there was a lot of dust down there in between turns, where are we, turn 15 and 16, an awful lot of dust down. I'm just wondering whether the circuit has taken a big step backwards in comparison to FP3. Not to worry though, Harry, in about 10 minutes time the track will come alive.
We certainly hope so, indeed. 6 drivers on the board with times at the moment. Perez just slotting into second in the Red Bull, 7/10 adrift. Red Bull were bracing themselves for a tough weekend here in Singapore. It's not traditionally their circuit. They struggle to ride over the curbs. It's a bumpy track in Singapore too. Although Verstappen seemed to have made improvements in FP3 earlier today, while the Ferraris appear to have made a step back, hence why we keep coming back to the fact we don't really quite know where the data is leading us in terms of a pecking order. But as I said at the start, the one consistent effort so far has been McLaren, and it's been Lando Norris too, who comes round the final corner and will cross the line. His first lap time on the board, he finds over a 10.5 compared to Charles Leclerc, quickest for the McLaren man, a 1:37.24. And actually, you say we are a little bit off from where we are. We're still faster than last year. The pole time was a 1:39.84. We're already quicker as Piastri comes across the line. Not as quick as his teammate. Can't beat Leclerc in these early stages, but slots into third. It's Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Perez, the top 4 at the moment, as we just get a replay of Carlos Sainz heading down to turn 1, not able to get it turned in. But Sam didn't rejoin in the appropriate manner. There's a little arrow that you have to rejoin at, and he cut the line.
Yeah, that'll be a slap on the wrists for Carlos Sainz, as he's now on his opening attempt here on what I think is one of the coolest street circuits on the planet. Carlos Sainz goes purple in sector 2 on his opening lap. Let's see what he gets up to in the third sector. For me, the fight for pole position tonight is going to be between one of the McLarens and one of the Ferraris. Just which ones will it be? Will it be Carlos Sainz taking it to Piastri, or Norris taking it to Leclerc, as we see Sainz jumps into P4?
The pole man from last year, P4 in these early stages, as Albon comes across the line in 5th for Williams. Well, we talked about it. Track evolution, certainly a factor, as the conditions, Rosanna, changing all the time. What's the latest?
Well, it's interesting. Last night in Singapore, there was a huge rainstorm, lasted for about half an hour, and it obviously changed the track conditions coming into today's running. And a lot of dust was brought back onto the track. You'd have thought by now, with support series, with the Formula One session earlier on for practice for FP3, that would have cleared up. But Sam, it's an interesting point, isn't it, that perhaps the track has changed even more. But we are, as you said, Harry, 1:30.7 currently. The teams coming into this weekend were predicting a pole time around 1:29.2. So we're a long way off that at the moment. We'll have to see how things develop going further into qualifying, and especially, of course, in Q3 with that pole position being set. Interestingly, a little bit of action in between FP3 and qualifying. Charles Leclerc and Ferrari had to report to the stewards because the tyre pressures had been altered in the pit stop position. They went and saw them. They've been given a fine. I will just tell you how much that is. It is £5,000. And of course, you've just seen Carlos Sainz rejoining in a wrong manner, and who knows, maybe that will also incur some form of reprimand. That's the latest from down here in the pit lane and paddock.
Thanks, Rosanna. Indeed, I believe that incident for Sainz has just popped up on our screens as noted for failing to follow the race director's instructions, the escape road instructions. So we'll see if that comes to anything for Carlos Sainz, who's currently 4th fastest, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's just crossed the line in 5th. Then comes Albon, Russell in 7th, followed by Perez. Franco Colapinto came across the line, but was quite a way off his teammate as he was making his way through turn 16. We're just seeing a replay out through the left-hander of 17. You get oh so close to the wall, and indeed touching it for Colapinto on the rear right tyre.
Yeah, too wide mid to exit at 16 meant that the radius of the corner at 17 was very, very tight. He got ever so close to the wall, didn't he, on the exit at 17? But not to worry, he lives to fight another day. He'll have another run, Harry, on another set of softs, and I expect him and Albon to be comfortably through to Q2.
At the moment, we're still looking for lap times from, well, here's Hamilton first.
Sliding a lot. Copy.
Hamilton saying the rear is sliding a lot. Lewis Hamilton commenting after FP3 that he and the Mercedes feel lost once again. Verstappen, we were waiting for a lap time from him. We finally get it. Puts himself up into second, less than a 10.5 back from Lando Norris. So it's actually looking fairly promising for Red Bull at the moment.
Oh, you say that, Harry. Just hold your horses a little bit, because look at the Hasses. Now, the Hasses didn't show any particular sign of pace in FP3. They've gone out later than everybody else with 8.5 minutes to go and done a lap time. And they're only 5 tenths off and 2.5 tenths off compared to Lando Norris. So I think the track is ramping up. Norris did his time at the beginning of the session, so I think that there's an awful lot more pace in the track now than there was 6 or 7 minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what Charles Leclerc has got. He just had a little bit of a hairy moment coming into the braking zone after the Anderson Bridge. He finds time. Second for him, just over half a tenth of a second back from Lando Norris, improving all the time. Sainz on another lap. A little bit down on time in the middle sector. At the moment, at risk is Daniel Ricciardo in 15th, and in that elimination zone, the two Salvers, Bottas and Joe, Franco Colapinto, who's come back to the pits in the Williams, Lance Stroll, who's also just followed it in the Aston Martin, Pierre Gasly, currently 20th and last. Gasly, though, in the final sector now, so we'll see what the Alpine driver has when he comes across the line. It's only enough for 16th, not safely through, with just under 7.5 minutes left of Q1, where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers. And Perez is only down in 14th, and just ahead of him is the Mercedes of George Russell. So everyone will have to keep going again. Such is the track evolution. As we just get a look there, Sam, at Max Verstappen coming through turn 9.
Yeah, it takes the curb on the inside, and it's as if the car takes a set and then rebounds up into the air, and then the rear just gives up and slides. So we also see Charles Leclerc at the hairpin at turn number 13, having a bit of a moment on exit.
And we've got that exit curb on the exit, funnily enough, of turn 8.
It's funny that an exit curb would be on an exit.
Who'd have thought it, eh? And one of the Alpines just finding that, and you get pitched up over it, and then you almost, your tyres lose that contact with the tarmac, and then, well, it's up to fate and momentum to carry you forward. Fernando Alonso almost losing the Aston Martin back in FP1, but so far just the Alpine at the moment, but we've spotted having a little moment there. Norris fastest then, just over half a tenth of a second clear of Leclerc. Verstappen third, Piastri, Hulkenberg's up in 5th ahead of Sainz, Alonso, Ocon, Magnussen and Tsunoda are the top 10. Then it's Hamilton, Albon, Russell is 13th, Perez is 14th, oh so close to that elimination zone. On the fringes is Daniel Ricciardo, and then if it ended like this, we'd lose Gasly, Bottas, Joe, Colapinto and Stroll. So now we almost get into that little lull period while everyone's back into the pits, change a tyre perhaps, and back out again for a final flurry.
Due to the nature of this circuit and just the way that the lap times are going to ramp up, I think everybody, and I mean everybody, will be running again, which is quite rare really for a Q1. Normally, if you're first or second, you've got enough of a buffer, but I don't think anybody really understands quite where the cutoff is just yet, because the track's going to ramp up so much.
It really is. Alex Albon running a little out of sequence then. He's one of 3 out on track at the moment, along with the 2 McLarens who are just on out laps, along with Alex Albon, who's now embarking on a lap as he crosses the line and heads down towards turn 1, stamps on the brakes, turns it into the left-hander, which immediately arcs slightly to the right before you brake and then curve it through the left, slightly uphill, up through the gears as you head out of turn 4, and then you have a slight slope downhill before you brake off camber into the right-hander, get a dose of DRS. The line comes quickly as you head down Raffles Boulevard, a slight kink at turn 6 before you then brake for the left-hander of turn 7, which is where that pesky exit curve is. He's up on his own time, about 13,000 slower than Lando Norris in sector 1.
Yeah, doing a good job so far this lap. Alex Albon swings through turn 9. Now it gets tricky. Turn 10, 11, 12. We've seen a lot of mistakes, especially into turn 11. Can he keep it clean through there? So we see a lock-up from Lewis Hamilton on a mini screen that we've got here. Oh, very close to the wall there for Alexander Albon. Negotiates the hairpin well. No oversteer. Back on power. Very close to the wall on exit. DRS is now open down towards turn 13. And it's purple sector 2.
Albon looking quick, an upgrade brought in. Well, back in Zandvoort has seemed to have catapulted Williams' chances in this final stage of the 2024 season with an extra little upgrade on Alex Albon's car this weekend to the front suspension, not on his teammate Colapinto's car, but that fastest middle sector is taken away from Albon by Lando Norris, who's flying out there across the line for Albon, though. He goes quickest by less than half a tenth of a second, but it's still to the top of the times, a 1:36.79. But Sam Bird, here comes Lando Norris.
And Lewis Hamilton just said on the radio the track is ramping up, and that it is, as we see Lando Norris come across the line and go 7/10 quicker than Alexander Albon. The track is there, and we're now very close to being into the 29s.
We saw that little replay earlier of Lewis Hamilton running out wide at turns 1 and 2. He did have his lap deleted because of that, but he would have cost him a lot of time anyway. And Alex Albon, I think he did just have a little touch with the wall on the exit of turn 13 on that lap. So much is Albon pushing. Albon on new tyres. Norris, we're hearing on old tyres on that run.
Yeah,
so that's even more impressive.
Just goes to show how much pace and how much confidence he's got around this track currently.
Piastri's gone up into second as well, 2.5 tenths back from Lando Norris. Then it's Albon, Leclerc, Verstappen, but they're all out there again now. So this final flurry, 2.5 minutes, and indeed every single car is out on track. This is Q1, where the slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated as we set the grid under the lights for the Singapore Grand Prix. Sparks flying from the underside of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. He makes his way through the left-hander of turn 7, braking into the right-hander of turn 8, but he's down on time in sector 1 compared to Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton, who has not felt comfortable in the car so far this weekend, trying different setups, feeling like they're not really getting anywhere, and at the moment, well, he's dragging that Mercedes round and trying to get the most out of it. He's down in 12th at the moment. He needs to find more time.
He does indeed, and do you know what? Everybody else is doing green sectors. Our timing screens are just lit up full of green, yet Lewis Hamilton hasn't done his best first sector. Okay, he's done his best second sector, but he's 3/10 down on Lando Norris on a new set of tyres. Lando Norris did it on a used set.
Verstappen out there on new tyres as well. So let's see what the Dutchman can do. Perez finding time in the middle sector. Hamilton will be the first of that gaggle to come across the line, round the double left-handers that see off the lap. Across the line, third fastest, a 1:33.93 for Lewis Hamilton. That puts Ricardo Perez in danger down in 14th and 15th. George Russell can't quite match his teammate on that lap. He gets up into 6th, a few tenths down. Perez across the line in the Red Bull, up into the top 4.
But is that even safe? 6.5 tenths back. I'm not totally convinced that the likes of Sergio Perez is safe with a time that much slower than Lando Norris.
I'll tell you what, the track is evolving all the time. Kevin Magnussen has had a good run through the first and second sectors. This is the sound of Daniel Ricciardo, currently down in 15th. Does improve, gets up to 12th. That puts his teammate Yuki Tsunoda right on the risk, right on the bubble. Some grimaces from the RB team wall, hoping Tsunoda can find some time to make himself a little bit more secure. But what about Kevin Magnussen? He's had a decent lap so far. He's down in 14th, round the final 2 corners, back from his 1 race ban, seeing out the rest of the year, gets up inside the top 10, just a 1:38 for Magnussen, up into 10th. Tsunoda will need to find time. The DRS opens, good lap from the Japanese driver, 8th place.
Got no mate. It's totally different to FP3. Totally different. These tyres are so different.
Russell not happy at all. He said after the race in Baku that he wasn't happy with how the tyres were behaving. Had a sit down with Pirelli's boss Mario Isola to try and figure out what was going on. Clearly still those issues affecting George Russell, who is not happy out there on that set of tyres. He's currently in 12th. Colapinto takes the flag as it comes out to end Q1, up in 8th spot. Ricciardo's at risk. Ocon's in the elimination zone, along with Gasly, the 2 Alpines, the 2 Saubers, and Lance Stroll is Aston Martin. Can Stroll get out of Q1? No, he can't. He takes the flag in 16th. Not good for Lance Stroll as Esteban Ocon puts Carlos Sainz down to 15th, who is right on the brink. Carlos Sainz is out there. It's been an okayish lap, but he'll need to find time, because I tell you what, Bottas is trying to find some time. He's not actually going to be able to find that heap of time up into 18th. Sainz might just be okay here. He's not had the best middle sector. Leclerc's only down at 11th. Such is the track, evolving all the time. But I think Sainz might just be safe, because Ricciardo is not on a quick lap either. Sainz will just make it through, crosses the line, improves his time up into 6th. But Ferrari left that late in the day.
Very, very late, but they've got the job done. They're through to Q2. That's what they would have wanted, would have needed. But the pace, the outright pace, was just not quite there for them. Right now, it looks like Lando Norris has got the edge on everybody.
Daniel Ricciardo out at the end of Q1, and have we just witnessed Daniel Ricciardo's final qualifying as a Formula One driver? Rumour mill is rife at the moment that he is set to be replaced after this weekend by Liam Lawson, yet to be confirmed publicly. But Ricciardo out then of Q1, out qualified by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for the 12th time this season. Stroll out in 17th ahead of Gasly in 18th, and then it is the two Sauber drivers of Valtteri Bottas ahead of Zhou Guanyu, and that is the end of Q1. Rosanna.
Oh, that is difficult to watch, isn't it, for Daniel Ricciardo? As you say, that could well have been his final qualifying session in Formula One. Not able to make it through into Q2 and being out-qualified by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda once again. And a difficult weekend for Lance Stroll. He's also out, unable to progress in qualifying. But we saw a picture of Liam Lawson on the big screens down here in the paddock, watching qualifying going on and talking with some of the team at RB. Do we think now that qualifying performance has really sealed the deal, guys, for Daniel Ricciardo?
Well, I mean, you know what, Sam? They were both really positive after Friday practice. Ricciardo and Tsunoda both actually looking like they were half decent. And you look at where Tsunoda got up to, 9th, and does that tell you everything you need to know?
Look, we are massively speculating, because we don't know what's going on in that team. We don't know what's going on with Daniel Ricciardo's contract and what the terms and conditions are. The same for Liam Lawson. There are strong rumours to suggest that Liam Lawson could be taking over, or he could just be taking over next year.
As you say, Sam, it is all speculation. It's going to be an interesting rumour mill that continues, I'm sure, this weekend, but hopefully we'll get some facts after the Singapore Grand Prix weekend. So we now approach Q2. Who have you got your eyes on who could perhaps, because actually we were saying the RBs were dark horses, weren't we, after practice yesterday, who could maybe spoil a party or two this evening and make it through into that final part of qualifying? We've got some big names who weren't...
Some idiots, man. We are in the way everywhere.
That was Verstappen on the radio, not happy with traffic, essentially, Rosanna, in front of him on his qualifying run.
Well, hopefully that'll get a little bit better in Q2, as we've lost a few of the drivers who haven't made it through into the second part. But we've got some big names there who only just scraped through, the likes of Charles Leclerc, George Russell. Are they going to have to watch themselves to make sure that they progress through into Q3? Because Lewis Hamilton was saying he didn't expect to even make it to Q3 after the practice sessions yesterday.
Well, I think so. You know, it's interesting as well to just note about Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He was down in 12th in the end, just ahead of the likes of Mercedes and the Russell. Apparently he did not finish his lap on new tyres. So he may well use the same set for his first run in Q2. So it might have just distorted our view of where the Ferrari sit in this situation at the moment, having seemingly made a bit of a step back in FP3. I think Russell clearly is in trouble here, because he's not happy with these tyres for some reason. It's not clicking, and we heard him on the radio. When you've got a car, Sam, that is drastically changing in how it feels from session to session in the same day, that must absolutely ruin your confidence.
It just feels like the Mercedes operating window is so small, and if they hit the sweet spot, they can be quick, but it seems like it's so difficult, and it can change run to run and tyre set to tyre set for no apparent reason. We don't know, and they don't. More importantly, I don't think they fully understand it yet. I think if they do the right window and he hits the right thing at the right time, George Russell will be through to Q3. But if not, then he could be in trouble.
if we look at the front of the field, the pace that Lando Norris is showing on those used tyres, that is formidable. And as we said at the very beginning of the qualifying session, he looked like the one to beat. It is proving to be so, isn't it?
Certainly is. He's been quick out of the blocks, and you know what? He needs to be quick, and he needs to get pole position, and he needs to win the Grand Prix on Sunday if we're going to have a drivers' battle on our hands. This is a crucial track. It's a in comparison to the rest of the season, and I know Red Bull are in this weird place at the moment, but this was always going to be a track where Red Bull and Max Verstappen were going to be on the back foot. This is the time for Lando Norris to score crucial points and take points away from Max Verstappen. If we're going to get a little bit more excited about this drivers' championship, he needs to deliver here.
We've got cars heading to the end of the pit lane, readying themselves for the second part of qualifying. The fans in the grandstand are cheering on their drivers. Cars being lowered down off the jacks. I'm just watching Charles Leclerc getting ready to head out into the fast lane of the pit lane. The mechanics holding the tyre blankets on his tyres, make sure that the optimum temperature ready for his quali run. He's been released from the garage and out he goes. Can he challenge the likes of Lando Norris? It's been looking so close between himself and Lando Norris so far this weekend. But a little bit of a surprise in Q1. He's got to have to work hard to make it through into the third part of qualifying.
Certainly is. Thanks, Rosanna. Green light on at the end of the pit lane. Perez peels out, followed by his teammate Max Verstappen. It is still hot and humid. Air temperature 29.5 degrees. Track temperature 31.6 degrees. Humidity of almost 80%. It is a bumpy track. The track evolution is high.
What is going on?
This is the best Ferrari lap. We can do what we want here.
Perez asking what is going on. This is the best for our outlap. We can do what we want here. Now, I'm presuming, Sam, he's referring to why have we gone out first? Because Perez is the first car out on track.
Exactly. There's a trade-off, though, isn't there? So he's not going to get the best of the track evolution, but he'll be able to do the tyre warm-up. That is perfect for him and his race car.
Well, just over 14 minutes then on the clock still for Q2. The McLaren of Norris is out there along with the two Red Bulls, the two Williams, the Haas of Hulkenberg, and now Carlos Sainz has joined the party in the Ferrari. It is one of the most physical tracks here in Singapore, where during the race a driver can lose between 3 to 5 kilos of body weight, such as the intensity of these 19 corners, 12 to the left, 7 to the right, spanning just over 4.9 kilometers. That's just over 3 miles of circuit around this Marina Bay street circuit to get to grips with. Charles Leclerc peels out of the pit lane ever so slowly. Charles
Leclerc does peel out, and he's using, as you said, Harry, that same set that he used at the end of FP1 where he didn't quite finish the lap. So you'll see Charles Leclerc going out on a used set to begin with, and then he'll bolt on a new set at the end of the session.
Here we go then. We will head into Q2. The slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated. It's a fight to get inside the top 10, where they will then battle it out for pole. And Sergio Perez then the first car on track to set a flying lap as he embarks through the right-hander of turn 5 into the first DRS zone. A little bit of traffic ahead of him of Oscar Piastri. He might actually, Sam, get the benefit of a little bit of a tow as he zooms straight past.
A tiny little tow, but that Red Bull doesn't look happy on curb striking. It complains every single time he tries to negotiate a curb. It just doesn't absorb the energy how the drivers would want and what you'd expect from a great Red Bull car.
Last weekend, Sergio Perez managed to out-qualify his teammate Max Verstappen for the first time this season. It has been a tough season for Sergio Perez. Are his fortunes starting to change? He's got a best qualifying around here of second on that front row. His last front row start was in Belgium this year, but at a track where Red Bull aren't comfortable, aren't looking too good, it will be a fight right till the end. Track evolution constantly meaning that the cars need to be out there right at the very end of the allotted time. Perez fast through the middle sector. Verstappen is faster in the first sector. These will be the first 2 lap times that we see come across the board. Perez will take it first through the left-hander of 18, out of the left-hander of 19. DRS board flies open, and it's a 1:36.53, the opening gambit from Sergio Perez.
Very, very wide out of the last corner, really right on the dust. kicking up tons and tons of dust out of 18. Anyway, and Max Verstappen as well, so wide. I mean, still
quicker.
Still quicker, but that's half a second to 3/4 of a second there. But both Red Bulls looking just
on the edge,
perilously close to the edge, out of the final corner.
That was a big moment for Max Verstappen coming out of the final corner, all crossed up, quick action on the steering wheel. Certainly would have cost him a bunch of time. Still went fastest, the 1:33, 3/10 clear of his teammate. Albon has just slotted into third for Williams. Lando Norris, though, now out on track, coming into the braking zone of turn 13, over the Anderson Bridge, into the left-hander, as he now makes his way fastest of anybody through that first sector. I tell you what, Verstappen's actually had his lap time deleted anyway for going off the track, as Lando Norris gets all sideways coming out of the corner, almost has a bit of contact with the wall, but just about holds it. Hulkenberg goes to the top of the timings. Singapore qualifying every day of the week. Yes, please.
Watching these drivers just millimetres away from the walls is just stunning. Lando Norris crosses the line. Does he go quickest? Of course he does. But, Harry, there's so much time in the pocket for Lando. That exit was so poor, and that continues all the way down from turn 14 exit all the way to turn 16. That's an awful lot of time that he lost there, because at the end of sector 2 he was 7/10 up on second place.
10 minutes to go, and even Charles Leclerc can't match Norris, even with that mistake. Leclerc almost 3/10 down in second. Then comes Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren, who hasn't been as on form as Lando Norris out from the block. Slightly truncated start to the weekend for Piastri.
What are we doing with the tyres? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That was Albon on the radio. What are we doing with the tyres? Absolutely nothing. Perhaps referring to how they're warming up the tyres on the formation laps. Albon clearly frustrated there, as we just get another look at Max Verstappen taking a bit of paint off the wall. Now, this is the replay coming out of the final corner, Sam. Looked like he just caught a bit of the curb on the outside, and that unsettled the car.
Yeah, the Red Bull is not riding curbs well at all. It's come off the end of the curb mid-corner between turn 18 and, let's call it 18B, whatever you want to call it, and then there's the exit curb between the two corners, and we're now seeing a replay of Lando. That's cost a lot of time, that slide on the exit of 14. But the Red Bull, to put it bluntly, is poor on curbs, isn't it, Harry?
Certainly is, and Verstappen had his lap time deleted for that, so doesn't have one on the board. Neither does Lewis Hamilton, neither does George Russell. They are out there now setting lap times. It's Norris fastest, Leclerc second, Piastri third, Hulkenberg's up in fourth ahead of Tsunoda, then it's Sainz, Perez, Magnussen, Alonso and Albon the top 10, and if it ended right now we'd lose Colapinto, Ocon is 12, Verstappen, Hamilton and Russell, but we've yet to see really what Verstappen, Hamilton and Russell have. Lewis Hamilton will show his cards first of all, for a man who has had such success around this circuit, looking still for his first pole position this season, a 4-time pole sitter around the Singapore track. But at the moment, this weekend, he's looked a little world away from challenging for that, and at times struggling to think they'll even make it into Q3. Well, this is his chance to try and haul that Mercedes up, and he's 7/10 up on Albon for 10th place in the middle sector.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Mercedes have come alive a little bit, haven't they? It's the understanding of the tyre, and understanding of the car that they've got underneath them. For some reason, they've bolted this set of softs on, Harry, and they're finding a load of pace, whereas before in Q1 they looked a little bit lost.
Yeah, Russell's having a great final sector as well. Hamilton to the top of the times, fastest of anybody in the final sector, over half a tenth clear of Norris. What can Russell do? I think he's quicker in the final sector, but just loses a bit of time in the first and second. Still, Russell pops up to third.
Yeah, I think there's still quite a lot of time that Lando Norris can get out of the track and out of a second set of new tyres. But great effort from Mercedes, great effort from Lewis Hamilton. But do they understand how they've done that? Do they really know? Right, that's how and why we did that, because that's the key.
Max Verstappen, who is now trundling his way down the pit lane, trying to put what will be his first lap time of the session. Tried to put one on earlier, but went wide in the final corner. Had a bit of a scary moment. Actually, could have been quite a big crash, but managed to hold it. Had his lap deleted.
I'm still really struggling out here. Don't know where all his grip has gone since practice.
Yeah, A-firm, understood.
Interesting message that from Russell, considering he's about 2/10 off of Hamilton, but up into third, and fastest of anybody in the final sector. George Russell still not feeling comfortable in that Mercedes with where the tyres are performing at, changing from session to session and not to George Russell's liking. One more lap time to wait on the board, and it is Max Verstappen who's on an outlap at the moment. And, well, those who need to go again will be the likes of Fernando Alonso, currently down in 11th, Alex Albon in the Williams, along with his teammate Franco Colapinto, Esteban Ocon is 14th in the Alpine, Max Verstappen, who has never been on pole position before in Singapore, indeed hasn't visited the pole spots in Formula One for 7 races since Austria. You've got to go back to his last pole position.
That's crazy to think that, isn't it? Who would have thought that at the beginning of this year, or looking back at last year, that Max Verstappen wouldn't have had that in his pocket for 7 races in a row?
Can he surprise us all and do it this afternoon? Well, we've got 5 minutes left of Q2 to see what the final part of qualifying will bring us. But certainly, so far, looking slightly rosier for the likes of the 2 Haas drivers. They're inside the top 10, but the track ramping up all the time here into the final 5 minutes. Indeed, everybody is in the pit lane, bar Max Verstappen, but I suspect as soon as Verstappen embarks or gets halfway around his flying lap, the rest will come filing out for the final few minutes to set one more lap if they can get it in time, in what may be the best conditions so far of the weekend. Verstappen embarks on his fly then, down into turn 1, quickly into the left-hander, then right, then left again, out of the exit of 4, gets perilously close to the exit wall before he moves over to the left-hand side of the track, into the braking zone, round the right-hander of turn 5, and then makes his way into the DRS zone, down Raffles Boulevard towards turn 7. The DRS slams shut under braking. He's a 10.5 up on Lewis Hamilton's time in sector 1. Good first sector from Max Verstappen. Makes his way through turn 9 and 10. Gets close to the wall once again, but pushing the limit, but not over the limit so far for Verstappen as he breaks into what was the old Singapore sling chicane, now smoothed out for a left-hander of 11, then the right-hander of 12 over the Anderson Bridge into the braking zone. A left-hander beckons once more out into the traction area, trying to get his foot to the floor, up through the gears, getting up to speeds of almost 300 kilometers an hour, just under that. Fastest of anybody in the middle sector, Max Verstappen. A second up almost on Kevin Magnussen's time for 10th. So this should see Max Verstappen through all the time. But if Verstappen is improving this dramatically, what will that do for the rest of the field into the final 2 corners? This is where he had his big moment last time. Keeps it neat and tidy for Verstappen, well within the lines. Fastest by 2.5 tenths of a second, a 1:29.680.
Big lap there for Max Verstappen to get through to Q3. So important for himself and the team. They cannot afford to lose too much more ground to McLaren if they want to try and claw back in the Constructors' Championship. Equally, he can't afford to let Lando Norris score 25 points and him qualify outside of the top 10. He cannot afford that at this stage.
Certainly, it was a prime opportunity last week for both drivers, but ultimately Verstappen starting in the middle of the top 10 and Norris all the way down in 15th, but in the end both finishing off the podium, but Norris ahead of Verstappen, and it wasn't as big of a points haul as either could have had. But heading then back out onto the track as Verstappen finishes his lap, everybody else then heads on to an outlap. Let's see who opts and who's still got some fresh rubber left on these soft tyres and who can eke out a little bit more. We will lose everybody down from 11th to 15th. At the moment, in those positions, it's Kevin Magnussen in Haas, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, the 2 Williams drivers of Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto, and Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, who is making his way around now.
Can you see any surprises, Harry, with 2 minutes to go?
At the moment, I'm actually surprised the Williams drivers are down there.
They're on their outlap now, so I imagine that especially Albon to make his way through. Let's see if Colapinto does as well. Charles Leclerc is on a lap and he's gone purple, Harry, in sector 1.
Looking quick for Charles Leclerc, who has been on pole twice here before. Never managed to convert it to the win just yet. But just a reminder, this is Q2. It all ramps up even more in a few minutes' time when we get into Q3 with our top 10 drivers. But Leclerc going quickly, quicker than his teammate Sainz in the first sector. Esteban Ocon trying to find something in that Alpine, which has been struggling all season long. Slight improvements over the course of the year, but nothing to write home too much about. Indeed, it was a tough Baku last week. Started from the pit lane. Prior to that, 2 15th place starts on the grid. At the moment, looking set for another 15th place start as Piastri finds time, half a tenth clear at the top of Verstappen. That's what's happening at the front of the field. Can Ocon spring a surprise, gets himself up to 11th. We'll see how much he can hold on to that position. But here come the quick times. Charles Leclerc up into third, a tenth off in the end, behind Verstappen and Piastri. Carlos Sainz, the pole sitter from last year, rounds the final 2 corners. Hasn't been as quick as his teammate all weekend long and continues that trend, 6th fastest.
I think Norris... Is Norris going to get round to do a lap, or is he... Norris is just started a lap and going very quickly, actually. I'm expecting this sector 1 to be pretty fast indeed.
I'll tell you who's at risk here. It's Sergio Perez, who has just been knocked down into 11th. Fernando Alonso gets himself up into 9th spot in the Aston Martin. What can Kevin Magnussen do on his return after his 1 race ban? 12th place for K-Mag. His teammate at the moment is up into 8th as Alex Albon takes the checkered flag, which is now out in the top 10. He's still on the cusp. Those behind going quicker. Can Colapinto try and pip his teammate once again? No, but he's right behind him in 11th. But Franco Colapinto, 7 thousandths of a second splitting him and Q3 at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda, what a lap for the Japanese driver, gets himself up into 8th spot. That pushes both Williamses down into the elimination zone. Nico Hülkenberg is on a decent lap. Sergio Perez will not make it through. He takes the checkered flag and he will not make it through into Q3. Perez is down to 13th. Can anybody make that worse for him? Hülkenberg improves his time, gets up to 7th, and that'll be it. Done for Q2. And we will lose the 2 Williams drivers of Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto. Sergio Perez, only 13th fastest, ahead of Kevin Magnussen and Esteban Ocon. And that is who is out at the end of Q2. But we knew, Sam, Red Bull were going to struggle here, but when you've got Verstappen up in 2nd and Perez 9 tenths adrift down in 13th.
Well, he's had one of his lap times deleted. I was wondering whether he was on a good lap and we haven't seen it and he's gone wide or something of that nature. Certainly we did not expect to see Sergio Perez struggle so much this evening, but bitter disappointment for Red Bull, especially when they're trying to chase down McLaren in the constructors. That is not going to help them at all.
They'd actually been on an upward trend as Sergio Perez in terms of qualifying performance. On the front row in Belgium, 5th in the Netherlands, 8th in Italy, 4th last time out.
Tough quality, Alex. You did everything you could. We'll have a look through that. Yeah, I know. There's more to come.
So Albon really not happy with that. Just missed out on the top 10. Alex Albon, a 1:34, and I tell you what, oh so close between himself and Colapinto. So for Colapinto's efforts to be that close to Albon, very good, but it also feels like a missed opportunity at the same time for both drivers.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fact that Colapinto doesn't have the upgrade, I think there must have been...
Really tight. I'm really sorry. 12. Yeah, sorry.
It's a good lap. You put it together. I don't think we were quite there on all the tyres, but well done on your side. Everything you could have done is there.
I think Williams are a little bit disappointed with that, aren't they? Both drivers saying sorry, or that, what's going on, as we see a replay from Colapinto, or just getting it a little bit squirrely out of turn 5.
Yeah, just getting those, and again coming out through turn 17. He's loving taking the paint off of the exit
that was
wall.
Albon. That was
right.
Alexander Albon. But both drivers, I think there's more in that Williams than what we've just seen. I think both are probably a little bit disappointed that they haven't made it through to Q3, whereas the likes of Yuki Tsunoda has done a great job in getting his RB through in 9th position.
Well, you know what compounds it is Yuki Tsunoda through, Nico Hülkenberg through, and they are embroiled Williams, RB, in such a tight fight in the midfield at the moment. RB currently lead the way, but have been a little bit out of sorts over the last few rounds, and so that is possible points that are not going the way of the Williams team. But that's qualifying. The Grand Prix will be tomorrow. But out of Q2 then, it is indeed the two Williams drivers of Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto. Sergio Perez, the big name to fall in Q2 for Red Bull. Kevin Magnussen, 14th for Haas. And Esteban Ocon, 15th for Alpine. Rosanna.
Big scalp there, Harry, with Sergio Perez unable to make it through to Q3, and everyone was saying how they were encouraged by his performance in Baku a weekend ago, and here we are, and he's not able to make it to the sharp end of the grid. Another driver who is also out of qualifying, we lost him earlier on, Daniel Ricciardo. He will start the Grand Prix from P16 as things stand, and I've just been having a chat with him in the media pen. Of course, the drivers come and talk to us, and I watched him walk around the media pen talking to the other media, and he had a smile on his face here or there, and I said to him, Daniel, I've been watching you do your interviews, you've had a smile on your face, you're ever the optimist. And he said, Rosanna, I have to tell you right now, that is a fake smile. I'll be honest with you, it's not often, but this is a fake smile. And I said to him, that wasn't your last qualifying session in F1, was it? And he just said, we'll see, and turned. So disappointing for the Aussie driver, obviously a fan favourite, but this could be another departure potentially pending for Daniel Ricciardo. Of course, nothing confirmed, but the way he was conducting himself in the media pen, it did look quite forlorn.
It feels like a Rosanna Tennant scoop there. Good work, yeah. Rosanna.
Thank you very much.
But, I mean, it certainly is a shame for them. It'd be interesting to hear from the two Williams drivers as well at some stage. Albon and Colapinto. Well, Albon particularly, we heard him on the radio, really not happy with where they're at with tyres. So perhaps their tyre warm-up essentially having some issues there for them, Sam. But we go through into Q3, and who have you got your eye on?
It's hard to look past Lando Norris right now for pole position, but I think Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen did a great job there in P2 in Q2. Ferrari, I don't really know where Ferrari are at, because I don't think we've seen the best of either of their drivers yet this evening. But for me, it's Lando Norris's to lose this evening.
Interesting, I've just been looking back at last year's stats, and Sergio Perez qualified P13 in 2023, managed to salvage P8 in the race, but it might not be quite as easy with the car they've got at the moment to progress as much as he did last year. So it's almost like the last 12 months haven't happened. God, 12 years, that's how long I've been in F1. But yeah, disappointing for Sergio Perez. And again, there's question marks over his career, isn't there? There were people chatting about Singapore being another deadline. I mean, it's all hearsay and chatter and who knows. But yeah, it'll be interesting to have a chat with him when he comes to the media pen.
Yeah, it certainly will be. When Verstappen finished that session up in P2, it was actually Piastri who topped the session from Verstappen, then Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris 5th, Sainz in 6th, Hülkenberg, Russell, Tsunoda and Alonso. Sneaking into the top 10. He has a habit of doing that, Sam, doesn't he, Fernando Alonso? In an Aston Martin that clearly isn't on the pace when his teammate is down in 17th. Alonso always able to squeeze the maximum out of the machinery he's got.
Yeah, he's top operator, isn't he? He's been a little bit anonymous this year, though. He hasn't had the car underneath him to perform the miracles that he did last year. I think that he can't wait for the end of the season. Well, the end of the season can't come quick enough for that team. Get Adrian Newey in and start, throwing ideas around and see what they can do with next year's car.
Well, that's all to come in the future. Right now, under the lights in Singapore, we are qualifying for the Grand Prix on Sunday, and we now, in just a few moments' time, enter the final segment of Quali. Q3 with the 10 fastest drivers all battling it out under the lights in the fight for pole position and to set your grid spot ahead of 62 intense laps of the Marina Bay Street Circuit. That's to come tomorrow, and you will hear the race in full on 5 Sports Extra. We'll have build-up from 12:45 ahead of lights out from 1 o'clock. But we are about to see the heavyweights do battle under the lights. More heavyweight action as well tonight on 5 Live, actually. Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois, live commentary from Wembley on 5 Live from 8:30 this evening. You can enjoy that. And if you are just joining us, my name's Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird. We also have Rosanna Tennant down for us in the paddock and interviewing all the drivers as this session unfolds. And Sam, so far we have pinpointed Lando Norris and McLaren, the ones to beat. That's happening at the top. But just to focus quickly on the lower half of the top 10, the likes of Hülkenberg, Tsunoda and even Alonso could get some big results here.
Yeah, they could. I mean, as you've said, it's so close in that kind of middle area of the Constructors' World Championship. If Hülkenberg can score a few points this weekend, if Albon, Colapinto can nudge their way up into the top 10 tomorrow, it changes not only the positions, but many millions of euros going into the development for next year's car. So it is crucial that these drivers, these teams, are able to score points in the latter stages of this season.
Indeed, Hülkenberg's best qualifying here actually has been 7th place back in 2017. Best race finishes have been 3 9th place finishes, so not quite the big points that Hülkenberg would always be wanting to get, but certainly 9th and 10th places when really the top 8 positions, if all goes well with the big 4 teams, are all taken. That's what the rest of these teams are battling for.
Yeah, exactly, but how often do they all finish? Although, having said that, we haven't had a safety car in so long. This is a track that produces. Now, this is a track that produces a safety car.
I can tell you, if we go back to 2016, it's a 100% record of a safety car. Every time, at least one.
Well, there we go.
Also a high probability of a virtual safety car as well, but that may well be to come. You know what? Well, no, I'll put a curse on it now, haven't we? We've had a fairly clean weekend so far. There's the curse for you. But we are underway then for Q3. 9 minutes and 42 seconds remain. So how do you tackle Q3 then, Sam? What is the usual run of order? Go out there, quick lap, come back in?
Visualize what you need to when you're sat in the pits prior to the session. You know, do a perfect lap in your mind, then go out and absolutely deliver that.
Well, setting their first lap times then, Oscar Piastri. Never been on a Grand Prix pole position before. Been on the front row in the last 2 Grand Prix and is out there and the first car on track and going quickly. We'll see for comparison once Max Verstappen actually will be the next car to come through the first sector. He actually goes quicker than Piastri in sector 1. Lando Norris behind him as well, all fairly evenly spaced out on track when it comes to traffic management. Not such an issue as it was in Q1 when we had 20 cars out on the circuit. Now just down to 10. Indeed, every car out there in this session. We have the 2 McLarens of Piastri and Norris, the 2 Mercedes of Hamilton and Russell, the 1 Red Bull of Max Verstappen, the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and then the 1 Haas of Nico Hülkenberg, the 1 Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, and the 1 RB of Yuki Tsunoda, all out there. Just finishing their outlap now is Carlos Sainz, and then everybody will be on pretty much their flying lap. Piastri will be the first one to cross the line, but he's not going as quick as Verstappen and Norris in these first laps, and actually sparks flying, car in the wall behind him into the barrier, and it is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. We just saw it as Piastri was finishing his lap, almost went straight on into the wall out of the final corner. He's moving in his car, the helmet visor is up and he's moving his head, but that entire rear of the Ferrari in the final corner in the wall. He's facing towards the track, slightly backwards, but with 8 minutes and 4 seconds on the clock, that has brought out a red flag for the man who put it on pole position here last year and won in a fantastic race of strategic thinking from inside that cockpit. Will now face a tough order come race day, and a tough order for the team to fix that car.
We've seen quite a few people get kind of squirrely and out of shape in between turn 18 and the start-finish line on that exit curb in the middle of the corner, and we saw Oscar Piastri actually in front of Carlos Sainz have a moment there. a lot of dust was kicked up by him, but then, yeah, Carlos Sainz as well has been caught out by that exit curb. Thankfully, he's okay, but that's a big impact and a lot of work for the Ferrari mechanics to do. And he was actually starting a lap, hadn't even completed one. Look here, Harry, through goes Oscar Piastri, a lot of dust about to be... Oh, it wasn't what we expected.
So he comes through.
That was not what I expected at all.
It comes through the first king, and it's almost so slow that he loses the car.
Yeah, I don't know if it was cold tires, dirty air, or it was fixed up.
Now, I expected it to be on the exit curb, a little bit like what we saw with Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll a couple of years ago. That was not what I was expecting.
No, so he's gearing up for a lap in that little straight between 17 and 18, and then joins the racing line just as he enters the left-hander of turn 18. But then almost as soon as he applies the throttle, loses the rear, has to have a big snap on the steering, and then almost like a tank slapper, he oversaves it, overcorrects, the car spins back around on him, and then backwards into the wall he goes.
And it was the kind of thing where you've just got no tyre temperature, as if the tyre has no purchase and grip into the tarmac. Be interested to see what he says after this and when they pinpoint exactly what it was. But very bizarre accident for Carlos Sainz there.
Well, it is a lot of damage as well to fix for Ferrari. Sainz's worst qualifying this season so far has been 12th place back in Canada. If they're able to get that car working and take to the grid even, he should still start in 10th place, but who knows, it could be a gearbox issue as well at the rear of the car. There might be further damage to that Ferrari once they get it back into the garage for them to take a look at. Max Verstappen's lap time was deleted in that Ferrari, so he will have to go again as well, but only Piastri and Hulkenberg set any kind of representative lap time. So Piastri heads Hulkenberg, but 8 minutes and 4 seconds on the clock. Everybody else was just about gearing up for their flying lap. And Sainz in the wall, but good to see he's out and walking back into the pit lane.
And now, with only 8 minutes to go, by the time everybody gets out of the pit lane, is there enough time for people to do 2 runs? Or is it going to be now a one lap thing, Harry? Especially the people who exit the pit lane last, because it takes so long for everybody to line up and wait their turn, get in queue. I mean, probably 6 minutes 30 by the time everybody gets out on track. I'm not sure.
It'll be tight, won't it? Especially if you want to allow yourself, the room on track and enough time to get your tyres up to temperature. But in qualifying, well, when the red flag comes out, the clock does stop, so it will resume, and we'll let you know as soon as we get a time from race control as to when we can restart this session. But heavy crash then for Carlos Sainz, who now makes it back to his side of the Ferrari garage, is greeted by his engineers and mechanics, who all give him a little slap on the back and a nudge and just check he's okay. But he is out of the car after a heavy hit, and that is his qualifying done and done. It will be, well, 10th place, I suppose, at best for Carlos Sainz when it comes down to it, and rather ruined his teammates build up into that lap as well for Charles Leclerc, as the tractor is out and recovering that Ferrari. But that's a lot of damage
to that rear left, isn't there? A lot of damage. You see the dust being kicked up there by Oscar Piastri, and then the Ferrari just almost follows in sympathy there. But for me, the warm-up was surprisingly slow. He's gone offline to get out of Piastri's way, and then that's why Max Verstappen's lap time has been deleted due to the fact that it was under yellow flags. Not anything that Max Verstappen could really do there, but
he eased off, I think, anyway.
Why did my lap time get deleted? I crossed before it was red.
We're just looking into that, Max.
Why did my lap time get deleted? It was crossed. I crossed it before it went red. I don't know. Well, he must have done, but certainly with yellow flag comes out, it's an automatic deletion. And Lewis Hamilton, just seeing struggling through the middle sector there in his Mercedes, didn't get a lap time on the board in time. Verstappen had, even with a bit of a lift off, had gone quickest with a 1:29.791, but lap time deleted then. So only Piastri and Hülkenberg have the, I suppose, the safety net of that banker lap initially.
Just looking at the damage on that Ferrari, I hope the gearbox is okay. That looks very, very heavy damage. You know, if he's done a gearbox or any major components, will that mean a grid penalty going into tomorrow's race? That is if they fix the car completely at all. I mean, there's so much going on back there. I'm sure the Ferrari mechanics will get it ready, but whether or not he's able to start in 10th place, I'm not sure.
Well, the marshals already then doing a quick job of getting that Ferrari away and clear. A little bit of repair work to be done to the barriers and some sweeping to be done for some of the little bits of carbon fibre that have been spewed across that final runoff area in the final corner. But red flag out then, 8 minutes and 4 seconds left on the clock when we resume, but we'll get confirmation of that from race control when we get it. Verstappen did get across the line, set a time, but had it deleted, so he will need to go again. Piastri and Hülkenberg, the only two to get a lap time on the board. So we just get another look then at this Carlos Sainz crash. So he slows right down, approaching the final corner, speeds up. Let's listen in. And that was the sound of a lot of money going down the drain of a Ferrari crashing. Do you think it, because he went quite offline in the runoff between turns 17 and 18, picking up a bit of dirt on his tyres as well, gearing up?
Looks like he was massively surprised by the way that the rear let go mid-corner. He was flat out back on the power to exit through turn 18 and start the lap, but once the rear let go, he's overcorrected and then it sent him in the wall on the outside.
But big crash for Sainz then. However, he is out of the car, he is okay. The Ferrari not so much, so there'll be a lot of work being done tonight on that Ferrari, which is a shame for Carlos Sainz, but you can overtake around here. It is possible. It is difficult, but it is possible. And, safety car interventions could well happen during the Grand Prix too, to spice up the strategy slightly. Still under red flag conditions then. Let's check in, shall we, in this qualifying session with the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. Evening, Andrew.
Evening, Harry. How's things?
Well, I'm doing all right. I think I'm better than Carlos Sainz. What did you make of that incident?
Well, it's a really interesting situation that's developed here, because we've just seen Max Verstappen went fastest, and then he's had his lap time deleted for passing double yellows at turn 18, which is where Sainz was. But he went fastest by 0.3 from Oscar Piastri. So the question is, did he lift for those double yellows? Did he lift enough for those double yellows? We don't know. Now, I'm told by another team that he was faster at the apex of that corner than on his Q2 lap, and then he lifted off. Now, if you remember, last week in Baku, Lando Norris failed to get past Q1 because he lifted for double yellows on the straight. And that ruined his lap. So the question is, how... I'm not saying he's done anything wrong. I'm just saying that people are going to be looking at that and going, what exactly has happened there? Has he acted according to the rules? Has he, if he's lifted for double yellows, has he lifted for the double yellows? Has he done it sufficiently? If he did it sufficiently, how come he's ended up 0.3 quicker than Piastri? I don't know the answers to those questions. I'm just raising them. Interesting to what Sam thought.
For me, the whole rule about slowing down for yellow flags or double yellow flags is still quite weak, and it's something that drivers and officials need to get together and sort out. Obviously, we had the issue with Jules Bianchi all those years ago now, didn't we? And the rule is that you have to go slower than your best in that sector. Now, if conditions change, you can still push, and he did back off. You saw across the line that he clearly backed off, but it was still better than his best. Well, of course it was, because he hadn't set a lap time yet, and that's what Red Bull will be arguing. we see on board now with Max Verstappen, there's actually no yellow flag on the approach to the corner. So that's what he will argue, that it's a blind corner, he couldn't see through it.
I lifted.
No worries there.
It's very late that you can see that car.
And no problem, Max. You've lifted.
I would absolutely agree with Max Verstappen on that. There was no yellow flag on the approach to the corner, and there should have been.
He was already in that section. He could see the car, you can hear him lift off, but then the next panel he sees is green, and then it's immediately red. There's no intermediary there, but he has lifted off. But then it comes a case of how much did he lift off enough, but equally did he have to with the flags that were displayed at that time? It's an interesting quandary, but Gianpiero Lambiase sounding fairly calm and confident over the radio there, but that will be the big question that that Verstappen and Red Bull will have to face. Nothing has popped up on the race control board in terms of being summoned to the stewards or any incident being noted. Double yellow flags, automatic deletion of your lap time anyway, so it's always going to be deleted. But based on what we've seen there, we didn't see a yellow flag.
I can't see the FIA being able to punish him for that, considering there was no information given to the driver or team that there was a car in the wall at that specific corner. There was no light panels, there was no flags on the entry to the corner. So for me, it's actually something that probably the FIA would need to look into, to getting quicker and better at producing the yellow flags or the yellow boards, rather than Max Verstappen doing anything wrong.
Well, good news from race control. Q3 will resume at 10:07 local time. So in a few minutes' time then, we'll get the cars back out on track into what should be, I think, a fairly hectic session towards the end of qualifying.
Massively, it would be chaotic. Who dares to cross the line last to do their assault on pole position? What this does mean, of course, is that the likes of Tsunoda, Alonso and Hülkenberg will be starting, instead of 10th, 9th and 8th, they could be starting 9th, 8th and 7th, which is obviously good for those teams in that battle that we'd spoken about prior to Q3, that the battle in the middle of the pack that is so important.
Absolutely. These opportunities can provide a lot for those teams in the middle of the pack. So when we resume then, we should have 9 cars out on track. Piastri and Norris for McLaren, Hülkenberg in the Haas, Verstappen in the Red Bull, Leclerc and... well, just Leclerc in the Ferrari, then the 2 Mercedes of Hamilton and Russell, the RB of Tsunoda and the Aston Martin of Alonso, all trying to set the fastest laps possibly of the weekend so far under the lights at the Marina Bay Street Circuit. Air temperature about 29.4 degrees, track temperature 31.5 degrees. It is always hot and humid in Singapore. I know we say it a lot, but it's such a big factor here. You can see even at the end of Q1 and Q2, the drivers that get out of the car, they look physically tired and exhausted.
So I always like to bring a little bit of humour into this, don't I, Harry? So
always,
we've just seen a little thing about 5 minutes ago now of some profile stats about Lando Norris. Now, it said his first job was a sticker maker, and then the last little bit of information about Lando. If you weren't a Formula 1 driver, what would you be? And it said, I would be a professional golfer. So I love Lando, and he's a great guy. Now, I've played golf with Lando. Me nor Lando would ever be professional golfers. We are not up to that task.
What's your handicap?
Golf is my handicap. No, I'm off. Oh, Dave, I've actually just recently updated my UK golf handicap.
Oh, you're that keen?
5.7.
Okay.
So it's not too bad.
Lando better or worse?
Lando's about the same standard as me.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, so we're not golfers. Let's put it that way. We are definitely not golfers.
You're more of a golfer than me. I mean, I occasionally hit the golf ball when I head to the driving range.
Yeah, but your feet get in the way. That's the problem.
Oh, that is true.
Size 400 shoe.
Statistically, that is true. That is the bane of my life. So I will never be a Formula 1 driver for sure.
No, and neither will I. So Lando.
But you came a lot closer.
I did. Well, yeah, yeah. But Lando, it is definitely worth sticking to Formula One because he's doing a sublime job. For me, he is the tip for pole position going into the last 7.5 minutes of qualifying. Let's see as the clock starts to tick down.
It does indeed. No huge rush out of the pit lane, so let's head down to Rosanna Tennant. Hello, Rosanna.
Oh, hello. I was just saying, I think Sam's just dropped a name on the floor. Harry, you might need to pick it up.
I did want to
Golf
say
with
that,
Lando
yeah.
Norris. Goodness me. Can we all come? Should we have an end of season BBC 5 Live round of golf?
You know what? I'll be at the bar, but you guys can go.
You can be at the 19th hole, or maybe it'll have to be the 10th hole, given we'll probably only manage a round of 9. Do you know what? I actually parred the second hole of the first ever round of golf I played. So, and first and only round of golf I've ever played. So, yeah, maybe we should all have a little go and see how we do.
Well, you know what? Just final thing on the golf chat. Andrew Benson has said, can you actually have a 0.7 as a handicap?
Yes, you can, because there's a new calibration.
Oh, Rosanna.
Isn't there a new calibration now with handicaps, Sam?
Yep, so you submit your scores from your previous rounds, and then it's kind of divided by your best rounds divided by it's very complicated. Anyway, it comes up with a number, and it's a great way of playing.
You're listening to 5 Live Golf.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. Can we now talk about the fact that Sainz Instant crossing the track on foot has been noted? This is something that we've seen a few times actually from a few drivers. I think we saw it with Lando Norris in Miami. Was it on the sprint race?
Yeah, possibly. We've seen it before, but normally it's a bit of a slap or the risk of perhaps another fine. Ferrari racking up the fines so far, Rosanna. But you've been speaking to some of the drivers, Rosanna. What's the mood been post Q2?
Oh, they all look very, very hot and a little bit tired, I have to say. But I was just saying, wasn't Lewis Hamilton also fined for crossing the track in Qatar? Yes. I seem to remember as well. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I suppose they're suddenly out of radio communications with their team, so they might jump out and then not have the reminder, don't cross the track or wait for a marshal or whatever. And so perhaps that's why these incidents occur, because really they're just wanting to get to the safest place as quick as possible. But sometimes that is not necessarily the legal way. But yes, the drivers, if you want to know the state of play, they just all look very tired, and these are the ones that have done one part of qualifying or 2 parts. So when the top 10 come in, it's usually holding, they always hold them, but making sure they're getting the electrolytes on and the water on, because this one takes it out of them.
Certainly. 5 minutes left to go, by the way, so we are going to see a final flurry. It's worth pointing out, if you go back through the BBC archives on the BBC Sport website, Andrew Benson pointing out that post that walking the track, over the track incident that Hamilton received in Qatar, the FIA did say they would reassess the penalty given to Lewis Hamilton for crossing the track without permission. At the time, he was fined €50,000 with half of it suspended and given a formal reprimand. But with the FIA saying that they would reassess the penalty on that, let's see what happens with Carlos Sainz. So might be worth sending that towards the FIA as well. Andrew, if you're listening, we know you are. Okay, right, back onto the track action then. Q3 underway, and we finally get the noise of engines heading out into the pit lane, and it's the 2 McLarens who head out line astern down the pit lane and will enter the track for the final 4 minutes of Q3.
Well, this is it now. Who wants pole position for this night race in Singapore? 3 minutes 50 on the clock as we see both McLarens head out into the night on a new set of soft tyres. Same with Hülkenberg in the Haas, same with Yuki Tsunoda, same with Lewis Hamilton. Everybody's got a new set of softs as we see the Red Bull of Max Verstappen still on the jacks in the garage. No time set yet for Max.
Cutting it fine for Max Verstappen. Are you a bit surprised, Sam, that they've left it so late to all go out?
It would have been touch and go to get 2 runs in, but everybody wants to be out at the end. Just think, the air temperature is just coming down that little bit more. That could make all the difference. You want to be last on track as well due to the track evolution. More rubber going down on the racing line can mean a much quicker lap time.
Rosanna Tennant, as Carlos Sainz will not be taking part in this session anymore. He's made it back to the garage, but we'll have 9 cars out on track, all out there, bar Verstappen and Tsunoda at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting one about not going out and using the track time available. Remember, we had eight minutes on the clock when the red flag flew. They are cutting it fine, but remember, let's hear from Snowden.
If the car in front of you play games, you are allowed to overtake him after the pit exit.
So, just being told about cars in front playing games. But remember, in FP3, nobody improved on their second laps on the soft tyre. So perhaps that's a learning from FP3. They know that it wasn't worth going out, filling a little fuller with fuel and running on that soft tyre. It obviously can't last for it. So that is why we're getting into this particular situation.
Okay, thanks, Rosanna. Just over 2 minutes then left on the clock. Fernando Alonso has just been noted for an unsafe release. So I think the stewards will indeed be busy post-qualifying. But right now, in these last 2 minutes, the fight for pole is on. And to set your grid position, 9 cars out on track. No Carlos Sainz after he crashed out earlier on.
You may need to do some work on your outlap in terms of track position.
You mean past cars?
Yep.
Well, yes, he's just coming through turn 8 now, is Max Verstappen. That's who's on the radio. He's got George Russell right in front of him, and then Lewis Hamilton a little bit down the road indeed. Verstappen is right behind Russell, will be trying to find his way through, but Russell will want the space as well as Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris embark on their final flight. Piastri with the benefit of a banker lap already before the red flag. He's fastest at the moment. Hulkenberg second fastest. Piastri up on his own time. We'll see what Lando Norris has got as he makes his way through turn 5 down Raffles Boulevard, as Russell is told on the radio, don't let Verstappen, I think I said don't let Verstappen pass, so they're going to have a right old ding-dong. They're still pretty together. Verstappen has got through on George Russell now for track position, so Verstappen finds himself in between the two Mercedes. They're just making their way down towards turn 16 now. Oscar Piastri looking good in sector 1. Norris not able to match his teammate through the first sector at the moment. It's advantage Piastri in this final flyer as we're into the last 40 seconds. It will be a one-lap dash for the entire field as we head into the closing stages of qualifying under the lights for the Singapore Grand Prix.
I think Norris's time was matching Piastri's, but it wasn't his best in the session. But a huge middle sector from Lando Norris puts him 4.5 tenths up on Piastri's previous lap. Piastri now crosses the line to only go 1/10 quicker than his previous best. We expect Lando Norris, who's going to be crossing the line in about 10 seconds, to go 3 to 4 tenths quicker. What's it going to be, though, for Lando Norris? He comes across the line.
Norris to the top, provisional pole for Lando Norris. An immense sector 1 and sector 2 puts him almost half a second clear. Can anyone find anything? Lando Norris has been on the pace since the start of the weekend, and right now sits pretty on pole position ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri. But what about Charles Leclerc, looking for a 4th pole of the season, the 27th of his career? Looks strong at the start of the weekend, but Ferrari seem to have slowly faded over the course of it. Now just one Ferrari left in the game. Hulkenberg takes the flag in 3rd, Alonso behind him in 4th. Still lap times from the rest of the field to come in. Leclerc round the final corner. Can he do anything? No, and he can't beat Hulkenberg either. Leclerc slots into 4th. Can the Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell try anything? Hamilton with his heroics back in 2018 to the front row for Lewis Hamilton with an immense final sector. Goes second, 3/10 behind Norris, but is displaced straight away by Max Verstappen, who gets closer to Norris in 2nd. Russell, can he do anything? Fastest of anybody in the final sector, takes the flag in 4th. Yuki Tsunoda down in 8th, and Charles Leclerc has had his lap time deleted for track limits. He was behind Hulkenberg anyway on his first lap, but the two Ferraris, who looked so strong at the start of this weekend, now down in 9th for Leclerc with no time, and Carlos Sainz crashing out in Q3, no time. It's a disaster for Ferrari. It's elation for Lando Norris, who secures pole for the Singapore Grand Prix. He'll start on the front row alongside Max Verstappen, the two championship contenders alongside each other.
Okay, mate, that's pole.
Yeah, well, difficult lap, difficult to drive, but well done, everyone.
3 poles in the last 5 races. Add one more onto that for Lando Norris. Picks up his 5th pole of the season. Never qualified higher than 4th here before, and now pulls up into that P1 spot. He did what he needed to do, Sam, but that sets us up for a great race alongside Max Verstappen on the front row for 62 laps.
Yeah, we're in for a great battle, aren't we, tomorrow night? It is a battle between the 2 championship contenders. Can Lando Norris take the fight to Max Verstappen this year? It's a long shot, and he needs something special to happen, or something crazy to happen, but he's certainly going about it the right way. Another pole position.
And Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, his first lap time would have put him behind Hulkenberg anyway, and then deleted 9th and 10th. We still, with a TBC behind Sainz's name.
Well, we expected Ferrari to be probably the team to beat here this weekend, but the way they've kind of fallen away, and then how many little errors have they made this weekend, Harry, with little things in the pit lane, with tyre pressures, with walking the track, with crash. They've had a really challenging Singapore weekend so far, and to be honest, it can only get better for Ferrari heading into tomorrow.
A good turnaround for the 2 Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell. Hamilton out-qualifying George Russell, and we don't actually say that too often this year. That now is only the 5th time Lewis Hamilton has out-qualified George Russell this season.
Big last sector from Lewis Hamilton, actually purple at the time, and a great job. But again, we speak about Mercedes, you know, they found something this evening, but Lewis Hamilton was dreadfully unhappy after FP3. Do they understand that car? They've managed to pull it out the bag again, but they are up and down.
Well, that was a mammoth qualifying then effort from Lando Norris, who starts the Singapore Grand Prix on pole position. Alongside him, Max Verstappen. Then it's the 2 Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell. Oscar Piastri down in 5th. A mighty effort from Nico Hulkenberg in 6th. Then comes Alonso in 7th. Tsunoda 8th. And the 2 Ferraris, Leclerc 9th, Sainz 10th. Outside of that, it's Albon, Colapinto, Perez, Magnussen, Ocon 15th. Ricciardo, Stroll, Gasly, Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, Rosanna 20th and last.
Wow, what a great qualifying session. We'll hear from the top 3 finishers very shortly, but a few standouts. You mentioned it, a stellar effort from Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas. P6 for him when his teammate Kevin Magnussen's down in P14. Rocket fueled by Haas this evening, Hulkenberg was.
And that is an absolutely epic result for Nico Hulkenberg. Bear in mind, he's actually never qualified higher than 7th around the streets of Singapore before. But let's hear from our top 3, starting with our pole man, Lando Norris, speaking to James Hinchcliffe.
And we're here with your pole sitter, Lando Norris, 6th career pole position. It looked like a really tough battle out there. Tell us about your lap.
It was tough. Especially through qualifying, I was finding it a little difficult to progress much and to get a lot of lap time. And more of the guys around seemed to get quicker and quicker, so it put me under a little bit more pressure, and especially with just 1 lap at the end. But it was good enough for pole, and I'm happy with that, especially here in Singapore. So a good feeling. I felt good all weekend. I felt confident. Maybe not so much in quali, but we got the job done.
You were quick all throughout practice, but like you said, you only got that 1 lap in Q3. How difficult was it to know you had to put it all on the line just once?
I mean, I like it. Like, it gets you, it gets your heart rate going, and it's good fun. My lap wasn't as good as my lap previous to the red flag, so there's always just a little bit more in it. But like I said, the car's been feeling good, and when you have a good feeling car and you're confident, you can go out and push and you can get the lap time. So I did the job I had to do today, and excited to see what we can do tomorrow.
Yeah, you said there was maybe a little bit more in it. We saw that your first sector wasn't quite as good as you had been previously. Yeah. You would have seen that in the car. So how deep do you have to dig knowing you're already coming up, taking yourself out of a bit of a hole off the start? I
mean, a little bit of it's just I had faith that we were quick, so I didn't have to over push, and I could just do what I've been doing the whole weekend, so that's a nice feeling that I didn't have to kind of go over and beyond. But it's tricky, like the car's moving around, it's bumpy, it's easy to brake 1 meter too late all of a sudden, so you pay the price for over driving and over pushing. But I kept it cool and I did what I had to do, so I'm happy.
Exactly right. Do what you need to do. Congratulations. Cheers. Pole position for tomorrow's Grand Prix.
Thank you so much. Thank you, mate.
Did what he needed to do, did Lando Norris, who still has 59 points to overhaul Verstappen's championship lead.
Max Verstappen will line up on the outside of the front row for tomorrow's Grand Prix of Singapore. Great result for you guys after a bit of a difficult start to the weekend. Tell us about the lap.
Yeah, I think the whole of qualifying actually went quite well. We managed to improve the car, run after run, already with FP3, and I'm happy to be on the front row if you look at where we came from yesterday. So Q3 was tough. You know, your lap gets of course cancelled with the double yellow. Then everyone only has one run, you know, to do the lap, so you don't want to overdo it. So you want to stay within the limit. I take second. I'm happy with that.
There's been a lot of talk about tire preparation today in qualifying. How difficult was it to get those tires into that right window on just that one last run?
Yeah, so they're always quite difficult. You know, tires can give you a lot of lap time or lose you a lot of lap time. I think today for us in qualifying it worked all quite well, so I was happy with that. Here we are, second. Tomorrow, of course, a bit difficult to say. Singapore, a lot of things can happen, but at least we have a shot at it like this.
All right, guys, your championship leader starting P2 tomorrow.
Max Verstappen then on the front row with Lando Norris. And here's your third place man.
Lewis Hamilton, P3 on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Huge cheer from the crowd. So much success here at this racetrack. You must be so happy with this result after some of the struggles you guys have had in practice.
Yeah, firstly, the crowd's been incredible today when we did the fan forum here. So huge thank you to everyone for the support. So many of my followers have traveled here from all over, so I'm really grateful. I think, qualifying has been a disaster for me all year long. And I've just been working, trying to get myself back up there. And all of a sudden, the car came alive in qualifying for the first time in a long time in qualifying. And it's a little bit of a shame because we were getting into rhythm and it was the same for all of us. But getting that lap at the end was a little bit tricky. But I think there was maybe a tiny bit more left in the car, but I'm really grateful for it. And mechanics, we've been moving up and down on balance. We changed everything this weekend on each day. And the mechanics have just been faultless, so I want to say a big thank you to them, and I hope that we're in a good position to fight for the front tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, huge improvement obviously over single lap pace. Do you think the changes you've made to the car are going to translate to good race pace tomorrow?
That I have no idea. One day at a time. It was a lot better today. It was the first time we had any front end, and we've seen that McLarens have been so quick each weekend. So I don't know. I think with management, I'm hoping we can try and keep up with these guys. Maybe not the McLarens, but we'll be giving everything.
Well, it's a long, hot race tomorrow. Go get some rest, get some fluids. Congratulations on a great start.
Thanks.
Former IndyCar driver James Hinchcliffe asking the questions to your top three then. Lando Norris, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. 3 different constructors in the top 3. That is what we like to see in 2024. Guys, maybe Lando Norris's pole was never in doubt, but what was definitely in doubt was Max Verstappen's performance this weekend. He was even doubtful about making it into Q3. He said on Thursday, we'll see where we end up. So actually, Harry, Max Verstappen drove out of his skin this evening. Would you agree?
Yeah, big turnaround for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. I mean, the disparity between himself and Sergio Perez, who didn't make it out of Q2. Is this what we're seeing from Verstappen? This is the Verstappen effect. He's able to drive around issues and find that way forward. And certainly to be only a couple of tenths behind Norris, who has had the measure of the field since FP1, if we're honest. First front row start in Singapore for Max Verstappen since 2018. That's how much this has been a bit of a rough track for Red Bull and Verstappen. The race is a different story, but this is a promising sign for Red Bull and Max Verstappen.
Well, Max Verstappen has never won here either. Lando Norris, as I say, has been supreme all weekend long. The McLaren seemingly performing so well at all tracks, whereas Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton alluded to it there, Sam, they've been trying everything. They've been changing bits and pieces on the cars. What would he be feeling like going into that race? Because, as he said, he doesn't really know how it's going to perform because they've been having to do so much tinkering over the weekend.
I mean, clearly he's going to be delighted with his performance today, but again, it'll be uncertainty heading into tomorrow. Is he going to have a fast race car? Is he going to have a race car that's kind on his tyres? Is he going to suffer with degradation? Is he going to be slow? We don't know, but for sure, we will be on air speaking about it tomorrow, won't we, Harry?
We certainly will. One more thing, Rosanna, can I just add? We've just seen the funniest scene. You know, the pole position award is handed out to Lando Norris with the Pirelli tyre, and it's for those who like the band, the Irish band The Cause are the ones giving it out. I'm a big fan of The Cause, but I'm not sure Norris knows
I think
anything
Lando's
about them.
too young.
Yeah, exactly.
Too young.
So it was just an excellent scene of The Cause giving out the pole position award to Lando Norris. Wonderful stuff.
They'll be asking him, what can we do to make you love us,
Oh,
maybe?
stop it.
Oh, there we
Let's
go.
end it there.
Guys, what a pleasure to call that qualifying session with you both. Formula E driver for McLaren, Sam Bird, and Harry Benjamin, your lead commentator. Both of them will be with us tomorrow to call the Singapore Grand Prix. It is looking set to be another great Grand Prix. I can't believe it. 2024 is really delivering. Lando Norris will start on pole for McLaren alongside his title rival Max Verstappen, and then it's Lewis Hamilton backing them up in P3 alongside his teammate George Russell. We can't wait for the Grand Prix tomorrow. We'll have coverage on BBC 5 Sports Extra. We'll be building up to the race from 12:45, and the lights go out at 1 o'clock. We hope you'll join Sam, Harry and me, Rosanna Tennant, then. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.